I grew up in a small Louisiana town where the air was always heavy with the scent of jasmine and the occasional whiff of salty bayou. My family, though close-knit, had its share of secrets and burdens. We lived on inherited land, and while it carried generations of pride, it also bore unspoken expectations. My father and grandfather worked tirelessly in construction, crafting homes that felt as sturdy as their values. I, however, chose a different path, one they respected but didn't quite understand: nursing. In my late teens, I met Bonnie at a local festival. She was magnetic, with laughter that could cut through the humid Louisiana air like a cool breeze. We married young, against whispers that we were rushing. Her father, a well-off plastic surgeon, made it clear he doubted I was worthy of her. I was determined to prove him wrong. Our first years together were a blend of hard work and tender moments. While I toiled in the ICU, Bonnie's career blossomed in finance. We bought our first house, a modest but charming fixer-upper that I rebuilt with my father and grandfather. Life seemed as steady as the oak trees that shaded our front yard. Then, after years of saving and building, my father gifted us the sprawling home where this story begins, a gesture of trust that rooted us deeper into the land I once dreamed of escaping. But cracks began to form in the seemingly perfect picture. Bonnie started spending late nights at work, and I chalked it up to her ambition. Then came the girls' nights that stretched into early mornings. My instincts, honed by years in critical care, whispered that something was wrong, but I silenced them. I wanted to believe in her and in us, until the day everything unraveled. When chaos strikes, knowing what matters most is crucial. If someone collapses from cardiac arrest, you initiate chest compressions immediately, keeping oxygen flowing to the brain until a defibrillator can restart the heart. If there's bleeding, you stop it first. Worrying about a broken bone comes later. Prioritization saves lives. Yet as I sat on the patio, staring into the humid Louisiana evening, I felt utterly lost. For the first time, I had no idea what to tackle first. As a critical care nurse, my instincts had always been sharp. I could anticipate danger before it fully surfaced. That ability had saved countless lives. But somehow I had completely missed the slow disintegration of my own marriage, an 18-year commitment crumbling right under my nose. And at that moment, I didn't want to save it. I wanted to burn it to the ground. But clarity hit me like a cold slap. Revenge would only create collateral damage. I took another sip of beer, my gaze fixed on the backyard. The lawn stretched toward the bayou, framed by towering oaks and pecan trees. Landscaping was minimal. Louisiana had enough snakes without inviting more. The house, a sprawling 4-bedroom with a deep shaded porch, had been a wedding gift from my father and grandfather. Built by our family business, Fontenot and Sons, it sat on 8 acres of inherited land. Though I'd chosen nursing over construction, a decision that had disappointed my grandfather, he had still respected my path. Family had always been my anchor. Now, that foundation was cracked beyond repair. I spotted my sister Susan making her way across the yard from her nearly identical home next door. Lifting a hand to catch her attention, I braced myself. We needed to talk. She eyed my beer as she reached the porch. Starting early, huh? Then her gaze drifted to the cooler beside me. Stockpiling, I see. I'm off the rest of the week, I muttered. She knew how my schedule worked. Long shifts, then consecutive days off. Overtime had funded my boat, my truck, and all the little extras. She grabbed a beer and settled into the chair beside me. All right, what's going on? You told me to take the day off, so I assume it's serious. It is, I said. Bonnie's been cheating. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock. Are you sure? Maybe it's a mistake? I exhaled. There's a video, no doubt about it. Her face darkened. Who sent it? Anonymous account. Pissed off 999. She clenched her jaw, fury rising. That cheating witch, who's the guy? I hesitated. If Rich ever did that to me, I'd ruin him, she growled. Then something clicked. Wait a second. When would Bonnie even have time? She's home almost every night, except for those rare girls' nights, and she carpools with Rich. She froze. Her face paled. Then it flushed deep red. They're screwing each other. I watched as she processed it. The fury in her eyes burned hot, but she swallowed back her emotions. I pulled her into a hug. I wanted to break it to you gently, I murmured. She stiffened at first, but after a deep breath, she exhaled and slumped against me. I had a couple of hours to absorb the shock before calling her. That buffer had kept me from grabbing a tool and making the situation worse. She pulled away, rubbing her face, then her usual fire returned. "What's the plan? Confront them?" I shook my head. "We keep our heads, act normal. Kiss our spouses goodnight like nothing's changed." She frowned. "I'm serious," I said. "We don't let them know we know. We talk to a lawyer first." She inhaled sharply, still trying to process it. I smirked, aiming for levity. "At least we know we haven't caught anything. Unless you have secrets, too." She shot me a glare. "Hell no. But damn, now I have to think about that," she shuddered. "You know me, I joke about being famous, but not in that kind of movie." She cracked open another beer. "For the record," she muttered, "Rich is getting nothing from me. I just started my period, and it's staying that way until we drop the hammer. Bonnie can deal with his sorry A. We also can't tell the kids. Not yet," I cautioned. She nodded. "Where are they now?" "With Mom and Dad. I sent them over this morning. Dad's keeping the boys busy, and the girls are free to do whatever. No questions asked." By kids, I meant my 2 and her 3. Our children had practically grown up as siblings, their bond unshakable. Jason, my oldest, was 17. Susan's son Rob was just a few months younger. Her twins, Dave and Cindy, along with my daughter Deirdre, were all 16. 5 teenagers within 2 years had been chaotic, but we'd made it work. Rich had always been the hands-on dad and uncle. I was the one who took them out into the wild, fishing, hunting, camping. In the early years, we camped in the backyard. As they got older, we ventured deeper into the bayou. Eventually, our trips required 2 boats, so either Susan or Rich would come along. Rich had always called it getting into the wild, but over the past year, he started backing out, letting the boys take his boat while he stayed home. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag. 3 weeks ago, I took a 6-day trip with the kids. 1 boat for me and the girls, another for the boys. We camped, fished, crabbed at night. It felt like a perfect family escape. Turns out Bonnie and Rich didn't care about family. Telling the kids would be the hardest part. "We can't keep this from them forever," Susan admitted. "But we have time," she exhaled. "So what's next? I don't forgive cheating." "Neither do I. Bonnie's done. But I need to make sure she doesn't take everything. As much as I'd love to feed her to the gators, I'm not going to jail, and she's not taking my kids." Susan leaned forward. "We hit them where it counts. Money. Rich is about to learn what financial ruin feels like." I nodded. She had a strong case. But Bonnie? That could get messy. Courts favored mothers. Susan smirked. "Our houses? They're in our names. Dad made sure of that before marriage. They can't touch them." I frowned. "She might convince a judge to let her stay." "Maybe, but she doesn't own it." She studied me. "Didn't you 2 sign a prenup?" Dad had insisted. At the time, I thought it was excessive. Now it was a lifeline. Bonnie's father, a wealthy plastic surgeon, had demanded one too. If either of us cheated, the guilty party walked away with just 20% of shared assets. No alimony, no spousal support. Louisiana law honored prenups. Her father thought I'd be the one to betray Bonnie. Ironically, it was his daughter who wrecked everything. Susan's expression hardened. "I'm worried about that video." That stopped me cold. "Who filmed it? And why?" I muttered. 3 angles, no edits, and they never noticed." Susan's eyes darkened. "Show me." I pulled up the file. She clenched her fists. "Those sick fools." Hearing them laugh at us made her blood boil. "Rich is done," she whispered. "But we need to find out who sent this." I nodded. "We wait." She sat in silence, then suddenly her shoulders trembled. The anger cracked, giving way to quiet sobs. I reached over, pulling her close, and for the first time all day I couldn't hold back my own tears. That night I wasn't drunk, but I'd had too much. A half-finished beer rested in my hand when Bonnie walked in. I greeted her with a hug, my mask firmly in place. I expected her to pull away, to rush for the shower. Instead, she kissed me. Hard. I inhaled, searching for cologne. Nothing, just her usual perfume. I took a slow sip of beer, my rage hidden beneath the surface. "Dinner's ready," I said evenly. Bonnie hesitated, then sighed. "Damn, I was hoping you'd eat something, and it wasn't food." Susan and I had already decided on takeout. Neither of us had the energy to cook, not without joking about poisoning our spouses. Dark humor kept us from losing control. The next morning, I stood by the window, watching as Bonnie slid into Rich's car for their usual carpool to work. My stomach clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. The game wasn't over yet. I picked up my phone and called Susan. "How'd it go?" I asked. "Surprisingly smooth," she admitted. "Almost lost my temper a couple of times, but sticking to the plan helped." Bet he's meeting up with Bonnie tonight. Any clue where? Susan was raw, angry, hurt, venting. Normally, she was a wild card, but right now, brutal honesty was all that mattered. By 10 a.m., we were sitting across from Jake, one of her firm's senior partners. Divorce was his expertise. "You're positive this video captures both of them?" he asked. We nodded, but kept the footage to ourselves for now. "As long as your evidence is solid, that's all you need," he said, a smirk creeping onto his face. "By the way, I reviewed your prenups. Damn, those things are ironclad. Can't believe you both signed without independent counsel." "My father made sure I did," I said. "Same with Susan and Rich." Jake let out a low whistle. "If either of you had been the ones cheating, you'd be in serious trouble. But since they were the ones who strayed, they're looking at a 20% cut of the shared assets. No alimony, no claim on your income." "Any loopholes?" Susan pressed. "Not many," Jake said. "If Bonnie had personal accounts before marriage, like any leftover wedding money, she keeps that. But any money earned during the marriage and not disclosed to you, that's fair game." I leaned forward. "What about home improvements?" He hesitated. "That's a gray area. Since the properties were gifted to you before marriage, they're protected. But major renovations, like your solar panels, could be considered joint expenses. A judge might rule that she's entitled to a portion of their value." I crossed my arms. "She can take her 20% and whatever furniture she wants. Hell, she can carry it out herself." Jake chuckled. "That kind of hassle might make her walk away with even less." "Exactly," Susan said. "But listen, do not leak that video," Jake warned. "If it can be traced back to you, they could sue for invasion of privacy." I frowned. "What if they recorded it themselves and it just ended up out there?" Jake shrugged. "Then that's their problem. But until you figure out how to use it strategically, keep it under wraps." Susan and I exchanged a look. We had considered exposing them to friends and family. The only thing stopping us was the kids. Now, though, we needed to figure out who had recorded it in the first place. We debated when to serve the divorce papers, Thursday or Friday. We settled on Friday. Let them sweat all weekend. Jake disagreed. Dragging it out just racks up legal fees. Plus, the sooner they get served, the sooner they're forced to submit financial records. And if their attorney even picks up the phone, that's billable. We considered having them served in person, maybe at lunch. A divorce decree with dessert. Jake smirked. "Tempting, but bad optics. Don't escalate." Instead, we arranged for the papers to be delivered at work, right in front of their coworkers. After leaving Jake's office, we hit the bank. Within hours, we drained 80% of our joint accounts into new ones, paid off credit cards, and closed them. Their cars were already paid off, so there was no risk of repossession. Jake had emphasized the importance of keeping everything above board. No sneaky tactics. We followed his advice. At the bank, I checked my email. 3 new video clips of Bonnie and Rich. Same hotel room, same angles. I replied to the anonymous sender. "Appreciate the info. How did you get these?" Also, concerned about them ending up online. That last part was a lie. A twisted part of me wanted them to go viral, but I had to play it safe. An hour later, a response arrived. 9203 Victoria Street, apartment 201. I drove there immediately. It was an unassuming apartment complex. Nothing fancy, just functional. The receptionist at the front desk was no help. "I think my brother-in-law is renting an apartment here for an affair," I said, leaning in. Blank stare. "I just need to know if he's a tenant." Nothing. I sighed. "I get it, you can't confirm anything. But here's the thing, he's got a record. Possible pill connections. Maybe human trafficking. Courtesans." Her expression changed. "What exactly are you asking?" she said warily. I smiled. "I just need to know who's leasing apartment 201. 5 minutes later, I walked out with a printout in my pocket. For 2 years, the apartment had been leased by Bonnie and Rich's company, with Rich listed as the primary tenant. Someone had uncovered their little hideaway and blown the whistle. I wondered how their employer would feel about footing the bill for their affair. But that was a problem for later. At exactly 12:30 p.m., Bonnie called. It had been 30 minutes since she'd been served. I could only imagine the chaos. "What the hell do you mean you're divorcing me?" she demanded. I almost laughed at her nerve. Keeping my tone calm, I replied, "You found someone else. I'm letting you go." I didn't mention the videos. The plan was simple. Keep them off balance. Don't reveal our full hand. "Infidelity?" Bonnie scoffed. "Oh, come on. People gossip, sure, but Rich is my brother-in-law. Who told you this? Some jealous coworker?" "Yeah," I said coolly. "Something like that." She exhaled sharply. "If you follow through with this, You're the one moving out. I'll get custody, and you'll be paying child support. I'll take half of everything, your boat, your truck. You'll probably have to sell them just to settle." I let her ramble. Mistaking my silence for hesitation, she continued, "I'm keeping the house, and you'll keep paying the bills. And since Susan served Rich, guess what? He'll move in with me. You can sit over there with your sister and wonder what we're doing in your bed." I took a steady breath. "Go ahead," I said evenly. "Call your lawyer." She had no idea what was coming. "Oh, and by the way," I added, voice calm as ever, "the kids are packing your things as we speak. Susan's handling Rich's. Everything will be on the front lawn this afternoon. Locks were changed this morning. We've already filed restraining orders, so you'll need to find somewhere else to stay." Bonnie started screaming. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Susan texted, "Backyard, bring beer, make sure it's full." I grabbed the cooler and stepped outside. Susan was already halfway through hers when I sat down. "That fool," she muttered, "tried to convince me it was just rumors. Told me, 'Baby, don't believe some secretary over me. Bonnie and I are just close.'" I smirked. Bonnie said the exact same thing. Susan shook her head. "If Rich were here, I'd hit him so hard, he'd be picking his teeth out of the grass." I took a sip of beer. I told Bonnie to pack her things and to call first, because I'll be answering the door with a loaded tool. Susan grinned. "Jake's sending 2 deputies over, just in case." "I don't need babysitters," I grumbled. "No, but Jake knows you, and he knows how close you are to snapping." She wasn't wrong. The deputies weren't for Bonnie and Rich. They were there to keep me from doing something I couldn't take back. My phone dinged. A new email. "Think it's from our mystery informant?" Susan asked. I opened it. An audio file. Bonnie's voice came through, irritated. "Can you believe Robert and Susan served us? They must have found out somehow. Just last night, Robert was all over me. If he hadn't been so drunk, I think we would have done it right there in the living room. And now this." "Relax," Rich replied. "They don't know anything. Not really. Someone probably saw us at lunch or carpooling. People gossip. No one has proof. We never touch in public, never act suspicious. Just deny, deny, deny." Bonnie sighed. "I'd love to leave town like we planned, but this is too soon. The kids are still in school, and we haven't secured the money yet." Rich sounded smug. "If they go through with the divorce, we'll make them pay. I have a frat brother who's a lawyer. He'll take our case. Just don't admit to anything. Assume everything is being recorded." The audio ended. Susan and I sat in silence. "So we don't know anything?" I said slowly. "Just rumors." Susan clenched her jaw. "They've been planning this for a while. He's had that apartment for years." I exhaled. "I'm more worried about the money. Rich made it clear they need to lock down their finances. We have to get ahead of them before they try something shady." Susan nodded, her eyes glistening. "We have to stay strong." "I know." "Jake said your situation is worse than mine," I admitted. "Courts favor women. If Bonnie fights for custody and stays in the house until Deirdre turns 18, I'm screwed. The prenup helps, but if I have to pay child support while she lives there for free, that's brutal." Susan hugged me as silent tears slipped down her face. There were no winners here. Divorce wasn't about winning. It was about surviving with as little damage as possible. Inside, the kids were quiet when they heard us enter. Deirdre and Cindy were shoving Bonnie's things into suitcases. When they ran out, they switched to trash bags. "Take pictures before sealing them," I instructed. I didn't explain that I planned to deduct the cost of every suitcase and garbage bag from Bonnie's share of the assets. Every little bit counted. Next door, the boys were almost done. Rich had fewer clothes, and they weren't bothering to fold anything. They stuffed his things into whatever containers they could find. I smirked as Rob, Rich's own son, shoved a $2,000 suit into a trash bag like it was an old t-shirt. They had my back. For a second, I wondered if they'd cover for me if I pissed in that bag. I decided not to put them in that position. Just as we finished, my phone buzzed. A text from Bonnie. On our way home now. I called Jake immediately. 15 minutes later, he pulled up with 2 sheriff's deputies. Jake smirked. "Relax and enjoy," he said when I asked if he was covering the cost. Bonnie and Rich arrived in his car. Another vehicle followed. Boudreaux, Landry, of course. Boudreaux had been a schoolyard bully since childhood. Dumb as a rock, but somehow he scraped through law school. Now here he was. "Hey, Robert," he called, stretching my name in his thick Cajun accent. I clenched my jaw. When my father said it, it was affectionate. From him, it made my skin crawl. "I hear you got some trouble with your wife and brother-in-law," he said. "Ain't no big deal. If I'd had a tool, I might have put a bullet between his eyes without blinking. But I knew better than to fight him. He was 6'3", 300 pounds. The best I could do was run until he collapsed from a heart attack and then kick him while he was down. "Hey, Boudreaux," I said evenly. "How's your mom and them?" "Good, good," he replied, and flipped the switch. The fake charm vanished. "So you really think my boy Rich is screwing your wife?" His grin told me everything. Rich had trusted him. Boudreaux had known all along, and he was here to gaslight me. "Well," I said coolly, "that's the story." Jake stepped in closer, sensing the tension. I exhaled. "I'm not putting up with it." I dropped the Cajun act as fast as Boudreaux had. I wasn't playing that game. Bonnie stepped forward, arms crossed. "You emptied our bank account." "Yes," I said flatly. "And I have the statements to prove how much was there. When we divide assets, you'll get exactly what you're owed." Bonnie glared. I didn't mention her credit cards were useless. She'd find out soon enough. Neither Susan nor I followed them inside. Instead, Deirdre and Cindy shadowed Bonnie, a deputy close behind. Jason and Rob did the same for Rich. "Where's my jewelry?" Bonnie demanded. I had expected that fight. I had bought her expensive pieces over the years. Tanzanite, emeralds, rubies, diamonds. I had them appraised a few years ago, worth at least $25,000. Now, most of it was locked away in my safe. Boudreaux opened his mouth to argue, but stopped when I snapped a photo of Bonnie's ring and necklace. "Insurance records," I said. "Just making sure nothing mysteriously disappears." Bonnie hesitated, then handed them over after whispering with Boudreaux. "So where the hell am I supposed to go?" she snapped. I almost said, "Try your Victoria Street love nest," but shrugged instead. Just days ago, I had loved this woman. Now I felt nothing. Not even anger, just nothing. Bonnie and Rich finally left. Boudreaux followed. I turned to Jake. "Think they're heading to the apartment?" Jake grinned. "I hope so. I have someone tailing them." But they weren't that dumb. Instead of going to their hideaway, they checked into a Holiday Inn. I made a mental note to follow up later. That evening, Susan and the girls were making dinner when my phone beeped. Another email. She followed me to my room as I pulled up the file on my computer. The recording started playing. Boudreaux's voice came through first. "You're probably being followed. That's why I told you to stay at a motel. Get a room with 2 beds. Make both look slept in. Investigators can bribe housekeeping to check. Tell them you're just sharing to save money." Rich scoffed. "Yeah, well, my credit card got declined at check-in. That was fun." "Good thing I pulled out extra cash," Bonnie muttered. Boudreaux continued. "Start listing your assets. Robert's got the jewelry documented, so you won't get away with that. But if you have money or valuables he doesn't know about, hide them. Legally, it's community property, but what they don't know, they can't claim." "Should we ask for a full list of the jewelry?" Bonnie asked. "No point," Boudreaux said. "Robert's right. You'd just sell them off cheap and claim they never existed. If you've got gold or cash stashed, bury it. If you have a secret bank account, keep it small. Anything under your social security number is easy to track. Offshore accounts are safer. Just don't get caught hiding assets. If this goes to court, you'll have to swear you disclosed everything. If they catch you lying, that's perjury." A pause. Bonnie broke the silence. "So what now?" "They can find our Baton Rouge accounts," Rich muttered. "I thought we were safe using the office address." "Screw that," Rich snapped. "I'll be damned if Susan gets another dime." "We need to call the airline," Bonnie said. "See if we can get to the Cayman Islands tonight. We'll open an account first thing in the morning and transfer the money electronically." "Too late to get cashier's checks now," Rich grumbled. "I'll check flights. You handle the motel. Mess up the beds, wet the tissues, ruffle the towels, run the shower for a few minutes. Open the soap, pour out some shampoo, make it look real before we check out." The audio ended. Susan rubbed her temples. "Do they really have secret accounts? Where's the money coming from? I see our bank statements. I know what we make. He couldn't stash enough offshore without me noticing." I felt the same frustration. Bonnie and I rarely used cash, and I reviewed every credit card statement. I told the woman at the apartment complex that Rich might be into pills and trafficking, I admitted. I was bluffing, but you don't think, Susan snorted. Rich? Mr. Straight-Laced? He wouldn't even know where to start. Then again, I never thought he'd cheat either. We couldn't do anything about potential hidden accounts yet, so we let it go for the night and joined the kids for dinner. The next morning, I stopped by a jeweler to get appraisals, then a tool dealer to document my firearms. I wasn't selling anything, just making sure everything was officially valued. The process cost me a new Glock, something I wanted anyway. Now Bonnie couldn't claim I was making unauthorized purchases. Susan finished work and met me at Jake's office. I played him the latest recordings. Jake shook his head. I'd love to know who's sending you these. How the hell did they bug a hotel room? A PI couldn't have moved this fast. Susan crossed her arms. Can we access their bank accounts? Not without a judge's order, Jake said. Even then, we have to find them first. Might take a PI. I'll have my guy dig around. No big withdrawals? Susan and I shook our heads. Then it's not worth chasing right now, Jake said. If they were stashing money, they've been doing it for years. Let's stay focused and get this divorce done quickly. Susan and I agreed. We wanted it over as soon as possible. In this state, divorce takes 6 months, Jake continued. But we can push for an early court date. Next week, we'll meet with Bonnie, Rich, and their lawyer to go over assets. Then we'll see a judge. Good news, this state runs on Napoleonic law. Probate's a mess, but divorce is fast, especially with proof of infidelity. I'll try to skip counseling, but some judges still require it. After the ruling, it's just waiting out the 6 months. Jake smirked. Oh, and Boudreaux called, wants you to release 30% more of the money you pulled from joint accounts. I rolled my eyes. Of course he did. I told him no, Jake said. Reminded him the prenup states the cheating spouse gets only 20%. Then I sent him a copy of the agreement. Susan laughed. Let me guess. He demanded proof of infidelity. Yep. Told him he'd get it in court. He wasn't happy, but he's out of moves. Jake leaned back, grinning. It's fun watching Boudreaux scramble. He's a stain on the legal profession. If I can slip an audio recording of him advising clients to hide assets into the courtroom, he won't get disbarred, but he'll sure as hell be humiliated. I hated being away from home, but I had to work that weekend. Sharon, the head nurse, had called earlier, saying she couldn't cover my shifts. What if I suddenly start coughing and need a COVID test? I asked. Would you find someone then? A-hole, Sharon laughed. Yeah, I could, but only for the weekend. We need senior staff, and I've got family stuff in Lafayette. My husband's already pissed I missed the last one. I get it, she added. If I found out my husband was cheating, I'd lose it too. You've got plenty of vacation and sick days. This qualifies as an emergency. Mental health counts as a sick day, right? How about this? I work the weekend and you start my vacation Monday? She exhaled. Really? You'd do that? You're saving me here. Yeah, well, you owe me. I do, she admitted. I'll start you on sick leave, then roll it into vacation. Take what you need. Just keep me posted. Honestly, work was a relief. Weekends in the ICU were unpredictable. Fewer scheduled procedures, but constant vigilance. The doctors only did rounds. We were their eyes and ears. Still, I wasn't expecting to see my father-in-law waiting at the nurse's station when I returned from rounds. I stopped. Dr. Prejean, what brings a plastic surgeon to the ICU? My voice was casual, loud enough for the nurses to hear. Most knew he was my father-in-law. The rest would soon find out. His expression was cold. Cut the crap, he hissed. We need to talk. Inside the head nurse's office, he didn't waste time. What the hell is this about you kicking Bonnie out? He demanded. She called her mother last night, sobbing. I met his stare. John, Bonnie is having an affair. I wasn't sugarcoating anything. It had taken years for this man to respect me, and he knew I didn't lie. The worst part? I continued. She's cheating with my sister's husband. I'm dealing with a full-blown family crisis. John exhaled, shaking his head. That's just office gossip. People talk because they commute together, have lunch together. You know how rumors spread. She told us before that people speculated she was sleeping with her boss, and that was nonsense too. I wasn't about to dump everything I had on him, but I knew being direct was best. I haven't told anyone except my lawyer and Susan, I said. Not even Bonnie and Rich know how much I know. I swallowed, keeping my emotions in check. But I have proof, John. Video and audio, the kind that makes it undeniable. His face changed. His eyes widened. Real shock. What are you going to do? He asked. What can I do? I replied. I'm trying to protect the kids. They don't deserve this. But I can't just let it slide. I leaned in. John, what would you do if Bonnie walked in here with proof that I'd been cheating? John didn't hesitate. I'd want your head on a platter, he admitted. His face fell, his shoulders slumping. I'm sorry, Robert, I had no idea. His voice was almost apologetic. He sighed. I'll help Bonnie. I won't let her be homeless. But don't mistake that for excusing her. If you say you have proof, I believe you. I nodded. I'd expect nothing less. With that, he walked out. I felt worse for him than I did for Bonnie. That night, Susan shook her head when I told her. So, he finally realized his little girl isn't perfect. That had to sting. She took a sip of beer. You know we have to tell Mom and Dad soon, right? I nodded. Tomorrow night, after my shift. We can't keep them in the dark. We both knew it wouldn't be easy. When we finally told them, my father asked one question. Do you have proof? I met his gaze. Undeniable proof. Like John, he was more focused on the kids than on us. I respected that. In our family, children came first. Adults dealt with their mess, but kids were never lied to. I hadn't received any new messages from my mystery source, but I already had enough. 4 videos, audio recordings, and proof this wasn't a fling. It was long-term planned and calculated. Bonnie hadn't just cheated, she had stolen from us. The Cayman Islands account still didn't add up, but just knowing it existed made my blood boil. Jake had started digging, running their social security numbers through financial databases. Even if the money was gone, we could subpoena the bank records. By Wednesday morning, we had answers. At Jake's office, we went over assets with a court-appointed financial auditor. I provided salary records and a pay stub I'd found for Bonnie. She makes about $5,000 a month, I said, sliding the papers across Jake's desk. With my overtime, we usually earn about the same by year-end. Jake nodded. That's good for you. Even without the prenup, she can't claim alimony. On Monday, the auditor asked for tax returns. I had ours in a drawer and handed them over. Susan wasn't so lucky. I have no idea where Rich keeps our tax records, she admitted. They should be with everything else, but they're missing, Jake reassured her. Rich makes around $80,000. You're at $50,000. You'll get a solid support payment. At noon, Boudreaux strolled into the conference room, followed by Rich, looking miserable, and Bonnie, radiating pure hatred. No regret, no apology. She had destroyed our marriage, yet she looked ready to curse me out. She stayed silent, though. Boudreaux must have told her to keep her cool. Rich, on the other hand, looked like he was barely keeping it together. Mr. Jacobs, the court officer, introduced himself and his assistant, who began recording everything. Let's begin, Jacobs said. You'll sign statements confirming that all information is accurate and admissible in court. Today's goal is to list assets and income. We won't discuss the prenuptial agreements. That's for later. He glanced at his paperwork. For vehicles, we'll use Blue Book values. If a car is in your name but primarily used by a child, it's still considered yours unless both parties agree otherwise. He looked around the table. Let's start with Mr. and Mrs. Fontenot. Going through vehicles, the boat, firearms, and household items took minutes. Even Bonnie's jewelry wasn't an issue. I had already appraised it, and its value exceeded my truck and tool collection combined. Then we got to the money. Jake presented checking and savings statements, including the withdrawals I made when I moved 80% of the funds. He did the same for Susan and Rich. Jacobs flipped through the paperwork. Everything looks standard, he said, then paused. Except for one issue, Mrs. Fontenot's reported income. There's a large discrepancy between her salary estimate and her tax returns from the last 2 years. Rich stiffened. I estimated her salary at $60,000, I said. Just multiplied her payroll by 12. Jacobs nodded. Yes, but her tax records show an income of $140,000 for both years. I blinked. My mind raced, but my mouth moved faster. What the hell? Jacobs' assistant frowned at my reaction. You didn't check your tax returns before filing? Jacobs asked. I shook my head. Bonnie and Rich insisted we use a new accountant, a client of theirs. Everything was filed electronically. I only checked the refund amount. Bonnie's face went pale, then red. Her base salary is correct, Jacobs continued, but she also received annual bonuses of $80,000, bringing her actual earnings to $140,000. I turned to Boudreaux, then to Bonnie and Rich, who looked just as blindsided. Jacobs wasn't done. As for Mr. Jenkins, he received $110,000 in bonuses for the same period. Susan stiffened. I didn't have our tax returns, but you got copies from their accountant, right? Yes, Jacobs confirmed. Susan leaned forward. So, how much extra money are we talking about? Jacobs adjusted his glasses. A total of $160,000 over 2 years. I turned to Bonnie, my voice cold. Where's the money, Bonnie? She hesitated, calculating her response, but I wasn't finished. That explains why you two flew to the Cayman Islands last Friday. You were trying to hide it. She opened her mouth, closed it, then snapped. What are you talking about? Realizing her mistake, she blurted, How did you find out? Are you following me? I smirked. Didn't have to. You did it yourself. Turning to Jacobs and the attorneys, I spoke clearly for the record. Years ago, Bonnie and Susan insisted we put locator apps on the kids' phones for safety. Turns out, they work both ways. Bonnie and Rich exchanged panicked glances. Last Friday, I asked Jason and Deirdre to call Bonnie. No answer. When they checked the app, she was offline all day. The other kids checked Rich's location, same thing. Then in the afternoon, they reappeared, near the coast. We checked flights into New Orleans and figured it out. I leaned back. Turns out you were in the Cayman Islands. Bonnie and Rich looked wrecked. They also stopped by your office Monday. You weren't there. The locator app showed you in Baton Rouge. I'm guessing that's when you moved the money. Jake cleared his throat. Boudreaux, you know we can subpoena those records. And you also know advising clients to hide assets offshore is illegal. He smiled thinly. Interesting timing. Your clients flew there just hours after hiring you. That's going to be a problem. Boudreaux's face turned beet red. I never suggested such a thing, he stammered, eyeing the court recorder and Jacob's assistant. Bonnie burst into tears. Even Rich looked rattled. Susan turned to Jake. Can we make them return the money? Jake nodded. We'll get our share, even if we have to garnish their wages. Once we prove infidelity, they'll owe the full amount. Bonnie lost it. But the money's gone, she shrieked. We tried to transfer it, and it disappeared. Rich motioned for her to stop, but she waved him off. I think he took it, she accused, pointing at me. I stared at her like she had lost her mind. I didn't even know about the money until now, I said. I suspected you were hiding something, but I had no idea how much. I leaned in. So what's your story? You spent it? Or lost it? Because both sound like nonsense. She shook her head frantically. We tried to transfer it at a bank in Grand Cayman, but the transfer was denied. That's why we went to Baton Rouge Monday, to figure out what happened. Jacobs folded his hands. Provide me with the Baton Rouge bank details. I can get answers faster than you can, and it will go on a record. As we left, Bonnie and Rich looked devastated. Susan turned to me. Where the hell did the money go? I shook my head. No idea. First, they had secret accounts. Now, it's all gone? Apparently, I muttered. Another mystery. Jake and Boudreaux expedited the case. I suspected Bonnie and Rich begged for it. They lasted a week at the Holiday Inn before moving into an apartment on Victoria Street. Probably their old love nest. The thought made me chuckle. Whatever money they had wasn't enough to keep them comfortable. And if Boudreaux charged high fees, they were in for a rough ride. For once, I almost wished for another message from my mystery source. But there was silence. All 5 kids insisted on being at the hearing, and I didn't argue. They had been just as affected as we were. They had every right to see it through. Before we entered, Jake gave us a rundown. Judge Guidry prefers a semi-formal approach. He doesn't sit on a raised bench. He stays at the table with everyone to keep things from getting too tense. Just follow my lead. We took our seats, Jake, Susan, and I on one side, Boudreaux with Bonnie and Rich on the other. The kids sat behind us in a loose formation. Judge Guidry walked in and we stood. He waved us down. I keep things informal in family court, he said. Speak when addressed, raise your hand if needed, and be respectful. If you piss me off, you're out. Understood? The kids didn't even crack a smile. Flipping through his files, he said, Normally these would be separate cases, but given the overlap, we'll handle them together. Bonnie shot me a glare, but I ignored her. There's an infidelity claim, the judge continued. In Louisiana, infidelity doesn't automatically dictate divorce terms, but prenuptial agreements do. If proven, they affect property division. That said, let's start with the financial discrepancies. Bonnie and Rich stiffened. There are concerns about hidden assets, he said, his tone sharper. Mrs. Fontenot and Mr. Jenkins had accounts in Baton Rouge, holding $120,000 and $160,000. My pulse quickened. We had them. But, the judge went on, the Monday before divorce filings, both accounts were drained. Bonnie went rigid. Rich swallowed hard. Bank records show the correct passwords and security answers were used, so the transfers were authorized. No sign of fraud. Bonnie and Rich looked completely blindsided. The judge leaned back. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Bonnie's eyes darted. What do you mean? He smirked. Every cent of that $280,000 was split evenly into 5 accounts, belonging to Jason and Deirdre Fontenot, and Robert, Dave, and Cindy Jenkins. My jaw nearly hit the table. These accounts were set up years ago, likely as college or emergency funds. Under the Uniform Gifts to Minors Act, these transfers are legal and irreversible unless fraud is proven. I turned to Bonnie, who looked just as stunned. If the money had gone to our kids, why was she acting like she lost everything? The judge scanned the room. Anyone have proof of fraud? I almost laughed. I had hoped to recover what was mine, but this, their hidden stash ending up with our kids instead, it was poetic justice. Bonnie and Rich glared at us like we had orchestrated it, but we hadn't done a damn thing. One by one, we shook our heads. No, Your Honor. Bonnie and Rich looked rattled. They had to be wondering if they had just crossed the line into financial crime. Good, the judge said, flipping to the next section. Now let's discuss custody. Deirdre raised her hand. Yes, young lady? She stood. I read that in some states, kids 15 and older can choose which parent to live with. The judge nodded. In Louisiana, a child's preference is considered, but I usually speak to them privately before making a ruling. Deirdre squared her shoulders. I don't need a private meeting. My mom betrayed our entire family. I want to live with my dad. She placed a hand on Jason's shoulder. He stood. Same here. Across the room, Robert, Dave, and Cindy stood too. We want to live with our mom, Robert said, for the same reason. I felt Susan tense beside me. I squeezed her hand. The judge studied them for a moment before giving a half smile. Noted, but infidelity hasn't been legally proven yet. Deirdre raised her hand again. Yes? I also read that at 16, I can petition for emancipation, and at 17, I can leave home without permission. The judge arched a brow. That's correct. The law allowing 17-year-olds to leave was originally for military enlistment. Emancipation at 16 requires financial independence. Deirdre nodded. I have a college fund and just received $56,000, not counting what was already in it. Cindy stood. Same here. She glanced at Deirdre before turning back to the judge. Between all of us, we have more than enough to be independent. Dave grinned. We could rent a place and be fine. Jason and Rob exchanged looks, then stood. If we pooled our money, all 5 of us could live on our own. I turned to the judge, waiting for his reaction. His lips twitched like he was trying not to laugh. Let me guess, he said, rubbing his chin. If I don't rule in your favor, you'll file for emancipation. And if you're 17, you'll just leave. All 5 nodded in unison. The judge sighed. Sit down. His tone was more amused than stern. Your opinions are noted. Shuffling his papers, he continued. Now, infidelity usually doesn't impact divorce outcomes. But since both marriages had solid prenups tied to infidelity, we need evidence. Jake stood. Your Honor, I have photographic proof of Richard Jenkins and Bonnie Fontenot engaging in sexual activity. Boudreaux shot to his feet. Objection. Those could be fabricated. The source is unknown. The judge glanced at Jake, then at me. Jake gave a nod. I cleared my throat. Your Honor, I don't know who sent the evidence. I received multiple video and audio recordings anonymously. The images were taken from those videos. Boudreaux smirked, thinking he had an opening. I continued. I hesitated to submit the full video, but I have a DVD and flash drive containing everything. I turned to Rich and Bonnie. They went pale. Judge Guidry caught their expressions. Do I need to play the video in open court, or do you acknowledge the infidelity? Boudreaux hesitated. He wanted to challenge it, but Bonnie and Rich had gone into full-blown panic. Bonnie burst out, No, please don't show it. Rich nodded furiously. Boudreaux sighed. Your Honor, may I confer with my clients? The judge's sharp gaze pinned him. Are they denying the claim? Bonnie and Rich shook their heads. Boudreaux exhaled. No, Your Honor, we concede. The judge nodded. Then here's my ruling. Silence filled the room. Given the admission of infidelity, the prenuptial agreements stand. Just like that, Susan and I were awarded 80% of the marital assets. The judge advised us to settle property division through our attorneys unless we wanted the court deciding for us. Then he turned back to custody. Given the circumstances, full custody of Jason and Deirdre Fontenot is granted to Robert Fontenot. Full custody of Cynthia, Robert, and David Jenkins is granted to Susan Jenkins. The non-custodial parents will have full visitation rights. Bonnie and Rich sat in stunned silence. And regarding child support, Bonnie Fontenot will pay Mr. Fontenot $1,000 per month for 3 years. Richard Jenkins will pay Mrs. Jenkins $2,000 per month for the same period. Additionally, each non-custodial parent must contribute $500 per month per child until they turn 18. A deep sense of satisfaction settled over me. Susan leaned in. They got screwed. Jake, however, shook his head. Not enough. We could appeal. I met Susan's eyes and shook my head. This is fine. She raised a brow but nodded. We had won. That was all that mattered. As we left, Jake arranged a meeting to finalize the property split. I told the kids to go home, change, and wait. We needed a family talk. At the back of the courtroom, my father was waiting. So, when did you figure it out, Dad? I asked. Susan frowned. It clicked when Deirdre and Cindy made those comments about the video, he said. Susan still looked confused. Pissed off 999, I said. It was them, the kids. Her mouth dropped open. No way, Dad nodded. I suspected when I checked an old credit card bill. Jason and Rob wandered over, listening. 2 months ago, these two asked to use my card for an anniversary surprise. Said it was only $500. What did they actually buy? I asked. Dad sighed. I checked. The charge was at an electronics store. The bugs, I muttered. Dad nodded. They wouldn't tell me much, but once I explained the card was in my name and the billing and shipping addresses didn't match, they spilled. So they spent $500 on phone bugs? Susan turned to Jason and Rob. Apparently, Dad said, and I still have no idea where they got the cameras. He followed me home, eager to hear the full story. All 5 kids were already waiting in the living room, falling silent as we walked in. Kitchen, I said. We talk at the table. Susan grabbed beers for Dad and me. Jason and Rob smirked, holding out their hands. You might be old enough to spy, but you're not old enough to drink, I said dryly. They shrugged. All right, I said, sitting down. Who's starting? Deirdre took a breath. From the beginning. She glanced at Cindy before continuing. It started when Cindy and I dropped by Mom's office one afternoon. She wasn't there. Neither was Uncle Rich. This was during phase 2 of lockdown. We figured we could hit them up for movie money, but the receptionist said they'd left hours ago. So we checked the locator app, Cindy said. The one they made us install? I nodded. It showed them at some random address, she continued. So we went to check. It was an apartment complex. Uncle Rich's car was outside, so we waited. They came out later, Deirdre said tightly, holding hands, laughing, acting like a couple. She exhaled sharply. That's when we started tracking them. 3 days in a row, they went back to the same apartment, always for about an hour and a half. Sometimes late at night, after work, but before heading home. We told the boys, Cindy added. Rob leaned forward. That's when we started researching surveillance equipment. We found bugs that turn a phone into a live mic. Runs in the background, doesn't interfere with calls. Drains the battery faster, Jason noted. We convinced Pop to let us use his credit card to buy them, Rob admitted. Sorry for lying, Pop. Dad waved him off. Installing them was easy, Rob said. We took turns listening and recorded anything important. I nodded. That explains the audio. What about the video? And how'd you figure out which apartment was theirs? We checked their keys, Deirdre said. Both had one labeled 201, not an office number. So Jason took Mom's key and made a copy, Cindy added. Susan gasped. You broke in? Not broke in, Jason corrected. We inspected. I pinched the bridge of my nose. We went inside a couple of times, Deirdre admitted. We knew we needed cameras. So we bought a few, Cindy added. And a small transmitter, Dave grinned. That part was cool. He was excited, completely ignoring the fact that he was describing the takedown of 2 marriages. Deirdre continued. The cameras were motion activated, so they didn't drain the batteries too fast. The receiver was hidden under the couch. It stored footage and sent it to our home computer. We recorded everything, Rob finished. I exhaled. So let me get this straight. You installed cameras, recorded video, captured audio, and then anonymously sent it to me? They exchanged looks. Yes, Deirdre admitted. I took a deep breath. These were my kids, my nieces and nephews. I couldn't explode no matter how reckless this was. But there was still one more issue. Let's talk about the money. Deirdre squared her shoulders. When Cindy and I first went to that apartment, we found Mom's stuff there. Clothes, makeup, towels. We knew what was happening. They'd clean up after their workouts and go home to you and Aunt Sue like nothing was wrong. We were furious. They weren't just cheating you, they were cheating us. She took a breath. The secret bank accounts were a side discovery. When we searched the apartment, Cindy said, we found bank paperwork, login instructions for an online account. It took time to track them, Deirdre admitted. We even checked Dad's files a couple of times, and we found more in Aunt Bonnie's office. Cindy smirked. The receptionist let us in a few times. We just waited. I rubbed my face. And the passwords? Aunt Bonnie kept a notebook in her purse, Cindy said. Had all her passwords. We tried a few, Jason said. And bingo. They used the same password for both accounts, Rob added. When we saw how much money they had hidden, Jason said, we were pissed. Were they stealing? Embezzling? We had no clue. Dave cleared his throat. I was the one who suggested moving it. Everyone turned to him. He blushed. It seemed fair, Jason shrugged. We read how divorce splits money, and we didn't want them keeping any of it. We already had accounts Pawpaw set up for us, so we figured, why not move all of it? I thought the cops might catch us, Deirdre admitted. But since it was technically our parents' money, we figured we wouldn't be in real trouble. The rest of us agreed, Cindy added. So we did it. If we had known about the 80/20ths prenup, we probably wouldn't have, Deirdre said. I leaned back, shaking my head. Honestly, it worked out better this way. Jason hesitated. Dad, we didn't want to hurt you and Aunt Sue, but we didn't know what else to do. So we sent the first video, Rob continued. We kept watching to see what you'd do. If you had grabbed a tool, we would have told you everything. Deirdre met my eyes. We just hope you're not mad. I turned to Susan, who had been speechless this whole time. Finally, I exhaled. I hope you kids never turn on me and Sue, I said, giving them a pointed look. Because if you ever pull something like this on me, I will find a way to punish you, even if I have to do it with a walker in a nursing home. They chuckled. You'll never have to worry, Daddy, Deirdre said firmly. You'd never betray us. We Cajuns stick together. Dad crossed his arms. One thing I don't get. You used my credit card for the bugs, but where'd you get the money for the cameras? Jason grinned. From them. I narrowed my eyes. Explain. Each camera was $500, video, sound, motion sensors. We got 5, plus a transmitter to send everything to Deirdre's computer. Total cost? $3,500 plus shipping. But we already pulled the cameras, Dave added. We can return them for half the money back. The phone bugs are probably lost, though, Rob admitted. Jason continued. As for the credit card, we used your Visa. I froze. I don't have a Visa. Jason shrugged. We do now. I applied in your name and forged your signature. At least he had the decency to look slightly guilty. $10,000 limit, Deirdre added. We bring in the mail, so hiding it was easy. Cindy grinned. We also made the pissed-off $999 email. Rob came up with the name. Rob smirked. Because, well, we were pissed. Susan, Dad, and I exchanged glances. We were impressed. So the bugs in their phones still work? I asked. Dave nodded. Yeah, as long as their batteries are charged, we can hear everything. Everything? I raised an eyebrow. Well, he clarified, only when they're talking. It's voice-activated, so we mostly get car noise and business calls. We take turns listening and saving anything important. Susan and I exchanged another look. I want access to those audio files, I said. Dave grinned. Done. Because of that, we always knew Bonnie and Rich's next move. A couple of months later, Karma did the rest. They got fired. Rich had been using company funds to pay for their apartment. And Bonnie? Her bonuses had been way too high. Rather than a scandal, the company let them go quietly. Since then, they've barely called the kids, struggled with child support, and drowned financially. I should wish them well, but I don't. I remember the day everything started to unravel. It was an autumn afternoon, the air crisp with a hint of decay that mirrored the state of my marriage. Back then, I believed in second chances. Or maybe I just feared being alone. The quiet evenings were filled with routine, and the silences between us grew longer, weighted by things unsaid. I spent those days convincing myself that love could outlast betrayal if I simply held on tighter. But no amount of effort could erase the memory of seeing her across the room at that conference, laughing too easily, touching his arm like I no longer existed. It was then that I began building walls around my heart, one brick at a time. I pretended not to know, not to care, but the truth gnawed at me like a slow poison. Life can sometimes throw our plans into disarray. That's why I've given up on planning entirely. Before my divorce, I constantly prepared for everything at work. I carefully arranged strategies to address any issues that might pop up unexpectedly in my department. I even had backup plans in place in case we couldn't use our regular emergency procedures. This morning, I got a call saying I needed to visit my ex-wife. I hadn't seen her in over a year and wasn't too eager to, but since my daughter asked, I knew I had to. My daughter, Samantha, Sammy, as we affectionately call her, was firm. I climbed into my prized green Mustang Shelby GT 500 and began the drive back to town. Maneuvering through traffic-heavy highways took nearly an hour before I finally reached the town's hospital, where Sammy had brought her mother. I parked in the visitor lot, hoping I wouldn't be there long. When I called the support line, I learned my ex-wife Erica had been in the hospital for 2 days. An impatient nurse greeted me with a polite smile, guided me to her room, and let me know I could go in and wait. But Erica was still asleep. With her? I asked. Your wife? She started. I raised my hand to stop her. Ex-wife, I corrected. Very much ex-wife. I smirked. The nurse returned the smile, but her expression quickly shifted. Dad, are you really flirting with the nurse while Mom's in the hospital? My daughter said from behind me. Of course not, Sammy, I said. If I were really flirting, you'd know. I glanced back at the nurse. Bonnie, she offered. Oh, that fits. Doesn't it mean something like pretty or beautiful in Scottish? Or maybe Irish. As in she's a fine lass, I said, adding a playful Scottish accent that made Bonnie's smile grow wider. Are you talking about me? She asked. Yes, I am, I said. It truly suits you, as I said. That's when my daughter decided to break up our smiling exchange and steered me into her mother's room. The room had 4 beds, and it was possibly the most dismal place I'd ever been. It's awful in here, isn't it? She asked. I shrugged. How would I know? I said. I don't have anything to compare it to. Dad, this is the ward, Sammy said. They cram as many beds in here as they can. It's noisy. Sometimes it smells, and Mom deserves better. I shrugged again. Dad, she's only here because she doesn't have health insurance. Darren can't put her on his plan. The only one who could is... Her voice trailed off. I looked around and raised my hands, palms up. Who? I said. I'm retired. I'm a consultant who comes in when they need some advice. The company offered me a plan, so I took it. You could put Mom on your health plan, she said quietly. Sammy, sweetheart, I love you more than anything. I'd do almost anything for you. But you need to understand that your mother and I are divorced. I fulfilled everything the judge required when we signed those papers. I took out a loan to write her a check so she'd get every penny she was due, I said. Sammy looked at me as though she suspected I was hiding something. Honey, how many divorced people do you know who got every penny they were entitled to on time? People are always talking about missed alimony or child support payments, right? I never missed a single one. I gave your mom what she was owed, but not everything she wanted, she said softly. We stood at the end of the bed, looking at the woman sleeping in front of us. You know she never wanted a divorce, didn't she? Sammy asked quietly. She still loves you after everything. You know, Sammy, people in hell want ice, I said sharply. But they're stuck there because of choices they made. Your mom and I are divorced because of something she did when we were married. I know what she did, Sammy said. I was there when it all came out, remember? And I know she was wrong, but I can't shake the feeling that you two still belong together. Dad, she loves you so much. Just look at her. She's fallen apart these past 2 years. She doesn't look 50 at all. 2 years ago, she was 48 and could pass for 30. Now she looks like she's in her 60s. Some people just don't age well, I said coolly. But maybe she needs to take better care of herself. If she lets herself go, what do you expect? Dad, she needs her husband back, Sammy burst out. She needs to feel loved and cared for. That's why she's so drained. Is that why you dragged me out of bed? I asked, pretending shock. So I could find her a husband? Where's your compassion, Dad? Don't you have any left? Sammy asked. Is this what you wanted? To see the woman you vowed to love, respect, and cherish reduced to this, so you can feel like you won? Sammy, you don't understand anything about compassion, I said sharply. Think about what you're saying and who you're talking about. I put up with her behavior for years and stayed married to her. I gave her countless chances, but she just couldn't change. And don't forget, your loyalty to her nearly cost you your own marriage. Sammy closed her eyes and nodded, reflecting. At least 3 families were almost destroyed, all teetering because of the selfishness of 2 unfaithful people, I added. Maybe they're meant for each other. I allowed a small smile, and Sammy's eyes widened. Dad, you don't mean that, she said. I shrugged, looking at her with a slight grin. You're getting older too, you know, she said. Dad, don't you want more out of life than just driving that car too fast, traveling, and dating someone new every week? I responded with another shrug and my palms up. I love my car. Mustangs have always been my thing, I said. I enjoy traveling too. And as for the girl of the week, I've been seeing Shelley for nearly a year now. I do have a soft spot for redheads. Besides, you introduced us. But Dad, she said tearfully, don't you want someone to share your life with long-term? Been there, done that, I said sharply. I really thought I'd found the one. I loved her so much, enough to swallow my pride and try to fix things. Even after discovering what she was up to, she just couldn't let it go. Dad, some women can love two men at the same time, Sammy said. And some men can accept that, I replied. The problem is, I'm not one of those men. Why am I even here, Dad? I've been here since we brought her in, Sammy said. I needed a break to go home, shower, and change. I want to see my husband too. Darren was great. He sat with her for a few hours yesterday so I could rest, but I can't ask him to do that again. You know he doesn't really like her. They were fine until I left things unresolved. Now, maybe he doesn't dislike her. Maybe he's just afraid that spending too much time with her will change you, and he loves you. So, do you really love me, Daddy? She asked. I always have. Always will, Angel, I said. Then why can't you be nicer to Mom for my sake? She asked. Why can't you just be kind to her, even a little? Because sometimes I can't find my heart, I said harshly. She tore it out while it was still beating. Sammy's eyes widened at the anger in my voice. I loved her, Sammy. I loved her longer than you've been alive. During those years together, I forced myself to stay calm. No, Sammy, I can't be friends with her. I can't move past it. There's no burying the hatchet unless it's buried in her forehead. I don't even know why I'm here now. Dad, have you gotten your closure? She asked. You've already broken her spirit. What else do you need? Sammy, I didn't seek revenge on your mother, I said. I walked away. I just left. I know, Dad, she said, but I still don't get it. So many things haven't made sense these past 2 years since the divorce. So many things I can't figure out. Like what? I asked. We split everything evenly except for the house. It just doesn't add up, she said. Mom didn't need all these things. She just wanted you. And it seemed like you should have had more money than you did. Mom's lawyer even went over our finances, I shrugged. So why are you driving a custom Mustang my husband says costs at least $50,000 when Mom can't even afford a car? She asked. Maybe I have better credit, I said. Anyway, I'll stay here and play games on my iPad while she sleeps for a bit. I'll give you a break, sweetheart. If she wakes up, I'll call you right away. What's the point? Handle it, Dad. Mom's been diagnosed with severe depression. She's on medication for it. For some reason, she took all her pills at once. We had to pump her stomach. She wasn't eating well and was drinking too much. She's exhausted and dehydrated, and we still don't know if it was accidental or intentional, Sammy said. So she probably won't wake up, right? I asked, smirking. That's right, Sammy said. But Dad, if she does, please be kind to her, for me. Okay, Sammy, I said. She kissed my cheek and left. I sat in the chair next to the bed and pulled out my iPad. I started reading, but quickly lost focus, my mind drifting back to how it all started 2 years ago. We do strange things for our children. When Sammy was little, she always tried to cook, mixing together all kinds of different candies. I love my daughter more than anything in the world, so no matter what she made, I'd eat it and tell her it was the best thing I'd ever tasted. I remember when she invited her mother and me over for dinner. We had a nice evening, even though Sammy still couldn't cook very well. The roast was dry as the Sahara. I suspected Darren knew it too, because he kept topping off my drink whenever it was half full. It's a good thing I'm not a big drinker, or that roast could have turned me into one. It was a pleasant evening with family, the kind you wish could last forever. I spent time with my grandson, John, Sammy's 2-year-old, whom she and Darren named after me. He was a mischievous little boy, but in his grandpa's eyes, he could do no wrong. The best part of the evening was when Sammy and Darren announced that she was expecting again. Darren, what are you doing to my daughter to keep this up? I joked. We chatted about the usual topics when a baby is on the way. Everything seemed perfect. We even discussed potential names. If it was a girl, we all agreed on Elizabeth, after Darren's mom. I suggested Peter for a boy, after Darren's dad, which he liked. Then, everything changed. You already have one grandchild named after you, darling, Erica said. Why not let someone else have that honor for this one? What do you mean? I joked. Let me guess. You want to name them Erica if it's a girl and Eric if it's a boy, right? Actually, I was thinking about Randall, she said. We could call him Randy for short. Randall James Dillon sounds like a strong name. Suddenly, the room felt cold. Sammy turned and looked at me. I don't know, I don't like it, she said. I prefer Dad's suggestion, don't you, Darren? Darren, still smiling at the thought of his father's joy, hadn't noticed my reaction. He nodded. Erica reached out for my hand, as she often did, and I pulled away almost too forcefully. Sammy hadn't noticed my expression. What do you think, Dad? She asked. In the coldest voice I'd ever used with her, I replied, I think if you use that name, it'll be just as big a mistake as what your mother just did. You know those scenes in movies or on TV where everyone is having fun, music is playing, and suddenly someone does something that makes everything stop? It felt exactly like that moment, complete with the imaginary sound of a needle scratching a record. For what seemed like an eternity, but was really only a few seconds, there was silence. Darren finally broke it, trying to be diplomatic. He glanced at his watch and said, "Wow, I really need to get to bed. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Thanks for the evening, Darren," I said. "Love you, Sammy." I stood up and headed to the door. As I opened it, Sammy called after me. "Dad, what's wrong with you? Are you forgetting something?" "Hug me, Sammy," I said. "I need to leave. I can't breathe." "I meant Mom," she laughed. "I thought you didn't drink, Darren. What have you been giving my dad all night?" "It was just Pepsi, honey," I said, "although I could use something stronger now." "What's going on, John?" Erica said, approaching. She reached out again, and this time I moved away so clearly that everyone noticed. "We'll talk about it at home, sweetheart," she said. "No, we won't," I said sharply. "I'm going back to my house. I don't know what you'll do or where you'll go, but it won't be with me." "Wait, Dad," Sammy said. "Are you upset with Mom over the name?" Erica's eyes widened as she realized I knew. "No, sweetheart," I said. "I'm not upset or angry. I just woke up to reality. Sometimes the people you love hurt you and you endure it. You stay silent, hoping that if you just wait it out, everything will improve. But then something happens that makes you realize it was all for nothing. Some things can't be overlooked." Everyone stared at me, except Erica. She already knew what I meant. "Dad, you're not making sense," Sammy said. "Sammy, your mother wants to name my grandson after the man she's loved for the last 15 years, the man she had an affair with. She found out a few days ago that he died. Now she's trying to keep his memory alive through my grandson." Both Sammy and Darren turned their eyes to Erica, who had collapsed to the floor, quietly sobbing. "I'm so sorry, John," she said. "It's over. It ended more than 5 years ago. I tried to be a better wife to you." "Why did it end, Erica?" I asked. "Because I felt guilty," she said. "I knew it was wrong, so I stopped." "Can we talk about this?" "First of all, it wasn't a full-blown affair. We only met once a year, and it wasn't always physical. And whenever I came back home, you and I always had the best times together. It ended a long time ago. I love you, John. We need to discuss this. You don't fully understand. It's not as terrible as it seems." "It's worse than you think, Erica," I replied sharply. "Maybe after the divorce is finalized, you'll finally be honest. I'm done with your lies." "What are you saying?" she asked. I confessed. "Erica, if you could, you would still be seeing him," I said. "I told you, I ended it," she replied, her voice rising. "And yet, you're lying again," I said. "I'm done." "Done with what?" she asked. "I went to Boston and met him 5 years ago," I said. "I beat him so badly that he ended up in the hospital. Before you boarded your flight, I took his phone and read all your messages. I might use them as evidence. I also made sure he knew who I was and warned him that if he ever came near you again, it would be his last day on Earth. I even said I'd inform his wife about your relationship. I told him that if he ever reached out to you again, even as a friend, I'd come back. That's why it ended, Erica." "I did end it, John. I'm sorry," she said. "I was wrong, confused. It was a mistake." "I'm sorry too, Erica," I said. "I was wrong as well. I was confused. I made a mistake by trying to save this broken marriage. I did it for Sammy, so she wouldn't have to endure our divorce while she was still young. I thought that over time, because I loved you so much, we might move past this. I was wrong. Instead of ending it then, I forced it to work. But you were right about one thing. You did end something. From the moment you said his name that night, our marriage was over. I left the house, got into my car, and drove off. I spent hours just driving. The roar of my Mustang and the rush of speeding down dark, moonlit roads dulled some of the pain. I turned off my phone to avoid any interruptions. Oddly, I wasn't as devastated as I might have expected. I had known about her behavior for over 5 years and had been preparing for this moment ever since. In many ways, the most shocking part for Erica was realizing that I had known about her deception all this time, and secondly, that she only found out that night why it had ended. She had flown to Boston for a conference, the same one she attended every year. She booked a room at her usual hotel. The conference was a one-day workshop, though she always told me it lasted 2 days. After the event, she had dinner with Randall. They stayed at the restaurant talking until it closed, and she even mentioned me a couple of times. After the restaurant closed, they shared a light kiss, and she returned to her room. Randall walked to the parking lot to get to his car. When he got there, I was sitting on the hood. "Hey, this is my car," he said. "Sorry," I said. It's wrong to touch things that don't belong to you, isn't it, Randy? I couldn't agree more, he said. Is that one of my hubcaps? Yes, I said with a smile. I took it myself. But let's not talk about hubcaps, Randy. Let's talk about Mary, your wife, who's waiting for you at home on Sycamore Street. It's probably too late for me to visit her now. Maybe I'll see her tomorrow. I'm calling the police, Randy said. I pulled out my phone and held it out to him. Go ahead, Randy. It'll be my word against yours, and you'll lose, because somehow it'll come out that you were spending time with my wife, Erica, while your faithful wife waited for you at home. Randy's face went pale. I'm not that kind of guy, Randy, I said. I think you're mistaken, he said. I do know Erica, but we haven't been spending time together. He looked into my eyes and saw that I was serious. Okay, we had dinner tonight. We were discussing interesting points from the conference and just lost track of time. But that's all. Nothing else happened. Phew, I said. You scared me there. He gave a small smile, relieved that I seemed to believe him. Then I punched him as hard as I could. He went down like a bowling pin. He got up and tried to run, so I threw his hubcap at his feet. He tripped over it and fell again. When I was done, both of Randy's eyes were swollen shut. His nose was broken, and his lip was split. You really scared me, Randy, I said. For a moment, I thought I couldn't go through with it. I know you only had dinner tonight. But what about last year, or the year before? How long has this been going on? Maybe 15 or 20 years, he muttered, his words barely audible through his swollen lips. It's over now, Randy, I said. He nodded quickly. If you ever mention your name again, I will ruin your marriage and your life. Do we understand each other? He nodded again. Don't visit her, I continued. No texts, no calls. There won't be any more warnings. I understand, he said. Randy, next time we speak, it won't be so civil, I added. It seemed to have worked. When I got home, Erica was acting the same as usual. After the conference, she tried to make it up to me with Zex, but I didn't give in. Normally, we would go on vacation together after the conference, but this year I pretended to be too busy. Despite my efforts, I couldn't shake off what had happened. Most of my thoughts were consumed by anger. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a heavy metal band called Judas Priest. Their best album is Screaming for Vengeance, and that's exactly how I felt. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't calm down. I wanted blood. I wanted someone to pay for the pain I'd suffered. If misery loves company, then I sure as hell wanted someone else to feel it too. And that someone was Randy. Through some business connections, I orchestrated his firing. I didn't make it obvious, didn't let him know it was me. But it felt good knowing it was done. I didn't regret it. It gave me the same twisted satisfaction as doing something good for Erica while silently destroying Randy. I had spent the last 5 years of my life doing just that. At the same time, I knew a divorce from Erica was inevitable. Why didn't I just confront her and file for divorce? Despite everything, I still loved her. Deep down, I wanted to believe her and give her another chance. But my mind, much like at work, told me to prepare for anything. I told Erica there was a pay freeze at work when, in reality, I'd gotten a promotion. After a few months, I got another promotion I'd been working for over the past decade. I didn't tell Erica my salary had almost doubled. I moved most of the extra income into accounts she didn't know about. 2 years later, I got another promotion and another raise. Again, I said nothing to Erica. The reason for all this secrecy was that if we divorced, she wouldn't have the slightest idea of my real income. She'd think I was still making $40,000 a year, and the divorce would be based on that figure. And yes, I know all the legal experts out there will say there's no way I could get away with this without consequences. A good lawyer would ask for my tax returns and talk to HR about my salary. The thing is, my boss was devastated by his own divorce and didn't mind helping me out. In the company records, I was listed as a middle manager. No one questioned it. All the other managers reported to me, and I reported directly to them. It seemed normal. 3/4 of my actual salary was paid regularly to a company that looked like one of our suppliers. I wasn't a director, nor did I own it. The directors were all my fishing buddies. In exchange for using their names, I'd take them fishing a couple of times a year. They were all listed as volunteers, so there were no tax implications for them. The money went straight into my offshore account, untraceable after that. There were a few times when I withdrew money. Once, after Sammy and Darren got married, I made a large down payment on their house to help them start their life with less financial strain. I didn't buy the house outright, but I contributed enough to keep their mortgage under $100 a month. Another time, I bought Sammy and Darren a second car since they worked in different parts of town, and it made life easier for them. But even when giving gifts to the kids, I had to be cautious. The way I was able to help them with the house and the car actually worked in my favor and allowed me to give Erica even less. The money for their house was supposedly from my pension fund. This way, if we divorced, Erica would believe I had almost no retirement savings to claim. The money for the car came from a loan, further reducing my disposable income, so Erica would get even less. One of the best parts of my situation was that Randall worked in production, specializing in casting inspection. My company was a manufacturing business with plants all over the country. I had a private detective friend who lived in Boston. I asked him to keep an eye on Randy. Every time he got a job, I'd tell one of our account managers. If we had an account with the company he worked for, one of my friends would lunch with someone there and Randy would be fired. If not, we'd open an account and then he'd be fired anyway. I kept a spreadsheet on my computer dedicated to tracking Randy and all of his downfalls. Sometimes, I didn't even need to intervene. Over time, Randy's reputation in the manufacturing industry became so poor that he couldn't even secure an interview. Before he died, Randy's last jobs were in landscaping or as a day laborer. His struggles put a significant strain on his marriage. His wife went back to work to help support their family. I never interfered with her career because I had no issues with her. I also made sure Randy's children got what they deserved. I single-handedly helped his daughter get into law school, creating a scholarship just for her and awarding it to her. The scholarship ended the year she graduated, and she never discovered who funded it. Her grades were excellent, and she received multiple bonuses from her unknown benefactor during her studies. Randy's inability to support his family and his minimal contributions took a heavy toll on his pride. He was a proud man who wanted to be self-sufficient and take care of his family. So realizing he couldn't was a major blow. He turned to drinking, and it eventually consumed him. Despite that, he never became violent or aggressive towards his wife or daughter. But by the end of his life, he was just a shadow of the man he once was. I also reflected on how my actions had changed me. I was no longer the person I was when I first discovered my wife's infidelity. I used to be calm and friendly, open and honest. But learning that the woman I loved had repeatedly betrayed me shook me to my core. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a heartless person who took pleasure in systematically dismantling another man's life over one mistake. I still saw myself, John Forrest, the kind family man. Shouldn't villains have telltale signs? In the past, they all wore black hats. Maybe I should swap my Mustang for a black one. Yet even as I considered these thoughts, I kept moving forward. I couldn't stop. My broken heart craved revenge more than it longed for healing. My soul demanded retribution far more than it desired forgiveness. As I watched Randy's life crumble, I kept an eye on Erica too. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. It's a terrible feeling to lose faith in the woman you promised to love and cherish forever. But that's what her relationship with Randy did to me. It destroyed not just our marriage, but also my ability to fully trust anyone. So for 5 years, while I was silently pushing Randy down, I was also watching Erica and preparing for our divorce. Unlike most men who only have a few days or weeks to protect their assets, I had 5 years to get ready. Initially, I planned for more. Despite everything, Erica was still attractive, though that was starting to fade. When we divorced, I intended to wait until she declined completely. But Randy didn't last as long as I thought he would. Over those 5 years, I hid and saved as much money as possible. I didn't worry about the house we lived in because it didn't belong to us. It had been in my parents' family for generations. We lived there because my parents, who were still alive, didn't need such a large house. When the divorce came, I made sure the lawyers knew that my parents owned the house and let us live there rent-free. When Erica returned from the conference, she sent Randall a message about how much she enjoyed their dinner and how wonderful it was to kiss him. She mentioned missing the times they'd been intimate, but was glad they hadn't been this time. She felt guilty for cheating on me, just as he probably felt guilty towards his wife. She told him that their current relationship, romantic without intimacy, was better. This way, they could enjoy it for the rest of their lives without guilt. Maybe they were getting older and didn't need physical affection. Just being together was enough, and this way, they could be together forever. She signed off with, "Until next year, my love." I read that message while waiting for my luggage at the airport. The urge to strangle Erica was overwhelming, and although I still felt some love for her, my feelings had shifted dramatically. Keeping everything under control became harder. When Erica got home, I was sitting in the living room watching a football game. She came over to hug and kiss me, but I pulled back, claiming I had a cold and didn't want to spread it. "Just make sure we're both okay by this weekend," she said, smiling. Why? What's happening this weekend? I asked. We're going on our vacation, remember? She said. We always go after my boring conference. Maybe you could take a mother-daughter trip this year, I suggested. I really can't take time off work. But it's just the weekend, she said. You'd only need to miss 2 days. Think about it. 4 nights, 3 days in Hawaii, just us. We might not even leave the hotel room. I bought lots of things you'll like. I wondered how many of those things Randy would have seen if they had met sooner. Erica, there's a wage freeze at work, and they're looking for any way to cut costs. I need to make sure they don't see me as an unnecessary expense, I said. I understand, she said. I'll call Sammy. Be in the bedroom 10 minutes after I go upstairs. She went upstairs, and I heard her talking on the phone with Sammy. At the same time, she sent Randall another message, asking if he got her previous one. It disgusted me. When I didn't go to the bedroom, she came looking for me, but I pretended to be asleep on the couch. Over the next few weeks, I composed myself. It was like a big performance, and I became a better actor than I'd ever imagined. We continued having regular intimacy. I don't know if Erica enjoyed it as much, but I certainly didn't. I no longer needed to focus on her because I no longer cared. I had to shift my perspective completely. Instead of seeing Erica as my wife, whom I loved, I began to view her as just someone I had physical relations with. It was convenient, and she was available. Our interactions grew rougher and less tender, but also more daring. Erica had always been quite reserved when it came to intimacy. During the period of guilt that followed her conference, when she needed to convince me that she was mine, she rarely turned me down. The next year, as the conference approached, I watched her closely for signs that she had contacted Randall. I checked her phone account online to ensure there were no calls from Boston. While there were no calls, she had sent several messages to his phone. She became more upset when Randall didn't respond. She even reached out to mutual friends, who told her he acted like he didn't remember her. The truth was, he did remember, but he was afraid. He knew that if he responded, I would either harm him or, worse, tell his wife and ruin his life. So, you understand it's over, she said with a smile. How do I know? I asked. 5 years ago, you told him your love would last until one of you died. Well, that was only 5 years ago, and now he's gone. But maybe you meant it. You loved him enough to try to have Sammy name my grandson after him, even if it cost our marriage. No, John, you don't understand, she said. You chose to hurt me instead. John, how were you hurt? She questioned. This went on for over 20 years. In that time, you and I probably were together over 2,000 times, and I cherished every moment. With Randall, there were at most 8 encounters, and they were all terrible. If I had put Randall above you, I'd understand the pain. But that never happened. If I gave you anything less than all of me or embarrassed you, I'd understand, but I didn't. I loved you too much for that. It was a once-a-year thing, far from home, where no one would know us. No shame for you. Even the year you confronted Randy and ended it, we had already agreed at dinner that it was better not to continue being physical, just to enjoy each other's company. This would have ended on its own. I wasn't going to meet him again that way. When I said it was better without guilt, that's what I meant. I was going to gently let him go. Next year, I wouldn't have met him at all. I would have changed my number, and it would have been over. No one would ever know. Just like when you go to car shows and models pose in your Mustang, it's just a nice memory. In our old age, you attacked an innocent man for no reason. John, he wasn't a threat to us, only to your pride. I wanted to name our grandson after Randall, not because I was in love with him, but to honor a special friend. A tear rolled down Erica's cheek. I clapped slowly. Great performance, Erica, I said. You must have practiced this while we were apart. Sammy, name the boy Randall James if you like. Randall James Dillon would make your mother happy. Sammy looked at me shocked. Dad, we're naming him Marshall after Darren's grandfather. Marshall Dillon, that's his name. I won't name my son after that man no matter what Mom thinks, Sammy said. Well, at least now you understand, Erica said. I wish you did, Erica, I said. It hurt because I loved you more than anyone. I loved you too much to share you with someone else. It hurt because despite what you claim when a married woman sleeps with another man, she's rejecting her marriage. Some say one mistake isn't enough to break up a marriage, but I disagree. And this wasn't just once. You had an ongoing affair for years. You lied, misled me, and broke our vows. Even now, I can't fully trust you. I still follow you to ensure you do what you say. You've damaged our marriage in ways that haven't fully surfaced. Erica, how long have I had the Mustang I drive now? And what's special about it? I asked. It has more horsepower, she said. Anything else? I pressed. She looked confused. You've never been in it, I said sharply. I've had that car for nearly 4 years, and you've never sat in it. When we go out, we use your car or the SUV. I don't trust you, and I don't want you in my car, just like I don't want you in my heart." Erica began to cry. "What can I do to fix this? It's been 5 years since it ended." "Isn't that enough, John?" "Let's be fair," I said. "What if I start seeing someone periodically for the next 20 or 30 years?" "John, I wouldn't like that. 2 wrongs don't make a right," she snapped. "I didn't think you would, Erica," I said. "There's a card on the table with my lawyer's contact information. Pass it to your next boyfriend. Try to find someone soon so this doesn't drag out longer than necessary." "John, I don't want a divorce," she cried. "It's been 5 years." "Sammy, get her out of here before I do something I'll regret," I said. Sammy took her mother's hand and led her out. In the days that followed, Erica made every effort to talk to me, often with Sammy and Darren acting as mediators, as I no longer wanted to speak with her. I tried to tell Erica that she had her chance to speak, but I stayed firm. Neither of us realized her staying with Sammy and Darren was impacting their relationship. Erica cried often, leaning heavily on Sammy, who supported her. After weeks, this influence began to show, and Sammy even mentioned it. At a dinner with Sammy and Darren, I explained that even though Erica and I were separating, my relationship with them wouldn't change. I'd still visit, and we'd spend time together without having to choose sides or worry about upsetting anyone. "Dad, is there really no way you and Mom can work things out?" Sammy asked. "I don't think so," I replied. "Why, Dad, Mom loves you. She didn't do it often, and it wasn't with people you knew. You even confronted that guy. On average, it was less than once a year. Can't you just—" "That's enough, Sammy," Darren interrupted sharply. Darren, usually quiet, was decisive this time. "What if it was me? What if I cheated with my secretary occasionally? Not daily, maybe once a month or less? Would it hurt any less if you found out when we were 50? Would it make it okay?" Sammy looked at him seriously. "You don't do that, do you?" she asked. "She's younger and attractive," Darren said. "I was attractive until I had your kids," Sammy retorted. "So because I'm not as slim, you cheat with Tammy?" "Sammy, one day she won't be beautiful either, and I'll be faithful again," Darren said. Sammy's eyes filled with tears. "Sammy, I'm sorry. I love you and have never cheated on you. You're still the most beautiful woman to me. But I needed you to understand how your dad feels. It's worse for him because it lasted so long." "I'm sorry, Dad," Sammy said. "I listened to Mom too much. She convinced me it wasn't that bad, and I wanted to comfort her. Your dad even gave her a second chance when he ended the affair. He didn't punish her or make her feel guilty, but she couldn't let go of her feelings. Can you imagine naming your grandson after the man your wife cheated with? Your mom either doesn't respect your dad or thinks he's naive, suggesting that name was insulting." "I think your dad is justified," Darren added. Erica fought the divorce fiercely. She tried to outmaneuver everyone and called me at work, saying she'd found her lawyer and would bring his contact info, stopping by before her date that evening. "Erica, you don't have to do this," I said. "Why interrupt your evening? Just give your lawyer my contact info." "I don't have it with me," she said. "I just remembered to call. I'm at the salon getting ready. I'll do it when I get home." "Should I tell my lawyer you'll call in about 10 minutes? I asked. "Why? You said you're at the salon. You've always been beautiful, Erica. They can't improve what's already perfect," I said. "I have to go," she replied, probably in tears. Minutes later, my phone rang again. "Dad, why do you always make her cry? Isn't divorce enough?" Sammy asked. "Sammy, what are you talking about?" I asked. Mom called, then started crying. I checked and saw the call was from you. I explained the conversation to Sammy, who apologized. "Dad, she wasn't at the salon or on a date. I think she was trying to make you jealous. Do you really think Mom is beautiful?" "I always thought so, Sammy," I said. "Her looks and personality were what I loved most about your mom. You might not see it, but she's truly beautiful and charming. I loved her deeply, which is why I was so angry at Randy. He threatened the person who gave my life meaning." "Then why not give her another chance, Dad?" she asked. "I did, honey, and it was the hardest 5 years of my life. Every time she left the house, I doubted where she was going and who she might be seeing. If she could have an affair across the country, why not nearby without my knowing? I love her, but I can't trust her. Remember when Darren joked about sleeping with his secretary? Did you stop thinking about it even after he said it wasn't true? Well, I don't have to wonder. Your mom actually cheated, and it wasn't a one-time thing. It went on for years until I stopped it. Without me intervening, she would have kept it going." Erica's lawyer pushed for counseling, and mine insisted I go. For the first 2 weeks, I read magazines during the sessions. The counselor asked why I didn't engage, and I told him it was pointless. The court could make me attend, but couldn't change my feelings. No amount of discussion could force me to stay married. It took 8 months, 3 times longer than expected. Erica's lawyer scrutinized my work records, suspiciously noting how prepared they were, as if I had anticipated this. He found everything needed but missed the deeper details. The judge considered the house an asset since I didn't pay rent, adding a calculated value to Erica's share. I also had to pay $400 in alimony for 3 years. I gave her a check and claimed it was from a loan, choosing monthly payments to the bank over dealing with her. After the divorce, I took my first vacation, a cruise. I kept to myself, hiding in my cabin and avoiding attention. It was too soon for socializing. My second trip was to a ranch out west, but there were too many men, and it wasn't the experience I'd hoped for. The final trip was a road trip called the 66 Cruise, traveling Route 66 from Chicago to Los Angeles with various cars, events, and parties along the way. I used this time to bond with my Mustang, thinking of it as my companion. The drive gave me space to reflect on what I wanted for the next 20 or 30 years without Erica. Even though I knew my life would be better without her, my heart still hurt. I realized I wasn't just a lost, lonely, divorced man. I was part of a community, thousands of people with the same passion for their cars. When we come together, it's a special experience, each of us believing our car is the ultimate work of automotive art. At the start of the event, I stayed on the sidelines during the announcements. I was never alone unless I chose to be. "Hey, buddy, your Mustang is gorgeous," an older man said. "I had one before I switched to Corvettes. How much horsepower does it have?" At every stop or meal, people approached me to chat about cars and shared interests. Some even debated whether foreign cars belonged on Route 66. I tell them, "Cars are cars. There's room for everyone." Most agreed, and one older man joked that car lovers should unite against motorcyclists. I steered clear of that conversation. I also met some passionate women on the cruise. One had divorced her husband when he claimed her classic '69 Camaro was his. When friends caught her working on it, he was so embarrassed he told her to choose between him and the car. She chose the car. I connected with some women I thought would make great friends, but I wasn't ready to replace Erica. Still, it made me realize life could go on and that I might find a partner again. I returned home feeling different, more content, and loving my Mustang even more. That's when I saw Erica at a mutual friend's wedding. The sight of Erica shocked me. She looked thin, gaunt, with a severe hairstyle and tired eyes. "Go say something nice to her, Dad," Sammy said, nudging me. "Then I need to ask you a favor." I crossed the room. "Hi, Erica. You've lost weight. Is this a new hairstyle?" She spun around, eyes lighting up. "Do you like it?" she asked. I didn't want to become inactive and out of shape. "You've always been beautiful to me," I said. "Focus on what makes you feel good. Your long hair always framed your face and brought out your best features, like your eyes and dimples." Her smile returned. "And you don't need to diet. Forget fashion trends. Whoever's next will agree that women with curves are better. Go have a burger." As I walked away, Erica looked stunned, watching me for the rest of the night. I kept my distance subtly. The next day, Sammy called. "Dad, you were great at the wedding. Mom seemed happier than she has in a while. She even ate a full meal. She said, 'Dad will probably like me better if I have curves again.'" "What did you tell her?" "I just said she's beautiful and shouldn't worry about dieting," I replied. "She's 50 like me. She doesn't need to be thin." "Whatever, Dad. I need your help," Sammy said. "Relax," she laughed. "It's not about Mom. I have a friend who needs help passing algebra and trigonometry. You were great at tutoring me in school." "Don't they have tutors?" I asked. "Dad, she works nights and can't make most sessions. Shelley is unique. Can you try for me? Besides, you don't have much else going on." I went to meet my daughter's friend. She had red hair, and at first I thought she looked heavy. Sammy mentioned that the woman had a condition and struggled with self-esteem. She was quite reserved and seemed unsure of herself. On that warm day when we met at a Starbucks downtown, she brought her book, and I started explaining the parts she didn't understand from the chapter their class was covering. Unfortunately, she also had difficulty with previous chapters. So I suggested we go back a few chapters to strengthen her understanding of the fundamentals before catching up with the class. She agreed, and we planned several study sessions throughout the week. For some reason, she started to really like me, and I began to wonder how her condition, whatever it was, affected her. The next time we met, still at Starbucks, we worked for about 3 hours before she became a bit frustrated. This continued for several weeks, and we grew more comfortable with each other. I often lost track of the conversation or found myself drifting off while looking into her eyes. Finally, one day before a Thursday afternoon class, I asked her if she'd like to come to my house. The weather was warming up, and I told her we could do 2 sessions on a Saturday afternoon before she had to leave for work, making it more convenient and comfortable without a coat. She looked at me and smiled. "I'd really like to study at your house," she said. "Not sure about the coat, though. I wear it for my safety and yours." "Shelley, I'd never make you feel uncomfortable," I said. "You know this by now. You can't control how you were born. Physical conditions are nothing to be ashamed of." She laughed. "Who told you I'm deformed?" she asked. "Sammy said so," I replied. "Mr. Forrest," Sammy was joking. "I'm not actually deformed, unless you look at it that way. I guess I'm just heavy." "Then there's no problem," I said. "Oh, but there is a problem," she said. "Do you have a computer?" she asked. I looked at her puzzled. "Google Mel Malloy," she said. "Watch the video. I have the same issue. I'll call you tomorrow to plan for Saturday." As she walked away, she touched my arm, and I realized I had a dilemma. This woman couldn't be older than 30. To me, she was just a kid. When I got home, there were 10 messages on my voicemail, all from Erica, my ex-wife. We had been divorced for almost a year, and I couldn't figure out why she suddenly wanted to talk. The phone rang, and I expected it to be her, but it was Sammy. "Dad, everything is messed up, and it's my fault. What are you going to do?" she asked. "Wait, honey," I said. "What do you mean?" "Mom," she said, "remember when I made you say nice things to her at the wedding? Well, she lost it. She started eating again and did her hair like she thought you liked it. She thinks she can win you back, and it's my fault. Dad, I don't know what happened between you two, but I think you like Shelley. I know she's young for you and has some issues, but she's really a good person. Just be kind if you need to let her down. You don't want to know what she deals with at work." I didn't want to make a mistake with Erica. I was glad she was coming out of her depression, but I couldn't see myself with her again. Too much had happened. On the other hand, Shelley fascinated me. What could possibly make her interested in me? She was beautiful. When we studied, I often found myself staring at her as she worked through problems. Her smile was captivating. Her lips were full, and I wondered what it would be like to kiss them or gently graze them. It seemed like my life was a cycle of highs and lows. For nearly a year, I hadn't met or spoken to any women other than those I encountered while traveling along Route 66. Now, 2 women were interested in me. One I didn't want and one I couldn't have. While I mulled over my situation, I turned on my computer and searched for the name Shelley had mentioned. I found a lot of results and questions. There were terms I didn't recognize. What on earth is POG? I watched a video. It turned out to be a vlog of a woman trying to lose weight. She was quite attractive and somewhat resembled Shelley, but it wasn't her. The hair and facial features were different. Was Shelley trying to tell me she needed to lose weight? Was that a concern? It wouldn't matter to me at all. I started watching some earlier videos, and after a few, I was stunned. The only person who thought this woman was heavy was herself. She had an incredibly curvy figure that no man would call overweight. She had a perfect body, full curves, a tiny waist, and striking proportions. As her videos continued, she spoke less about dieting and more about her interactions with the viewers, showing more of herself as her audience grew. The less she wore, the more attention she received. I was taken aback. I picked up the phone without thinking when it rang. "John, would you like to come over for dinner to see your daughter, son-in-law, and grandkids? I'm making a roast, just how you like it, with carrots and potatoes," Erica said. I wasn't sure what to say. I'd always told everyone I wanted things to be easy and comfortable so the kids wouldn't feel awkward about inviting both of us. So I said yes. I went over expecting a relaxed family dinner. When I arrived, Darren was in jeans and a t-shirt, and we chatted for a bit. Then Erica came downstairs, dressed up in a new dress that showed her legs. She'd gained some weight since the wedding, but she looked healthier. Her hair was down and flowing, and she looked better than she had at the wedding, where she'd worn too much makeup and had stiff hair. She smiled at me and sat next to me. "The roast will be ready in 20 minutes, she said. "Sammy is upstairs trying to get the kids ready for bed." She took my hand and looked at me. At that point, Darren decided to go check the wine for dinner. "Will we have wine?" I asked. That set the tone for the evening. I found myself alone with Erica often, who kept smiling at me. The food was delicious. When you're used to someone cooking for you for so long and then it stops, you learn to appreciate it even more. I thought about the last time we all had a roast dinner together, the time Sammy's dry fries nearly did us in, and Erica brought up naming our grandson after Randy, which led to our divorce. After dinner, Sammy got up to do the dishes, and Darren helped her. Erica suggested we go for a walk or sit on the porch. If we were at home, we'd be out on our veranda, she said. It feels like another life, but it's only been a year. It really does feel like a long time ago, I said. John, have you been with anyone since our divorce? She asked. Of course, I replied. Plenty of times. Oh, she said, sounding disappointed. I guess I deserve this. What do you mean? I asked. I haven't been with anyone since us. I didn't even try. So you're just having fun, or? No, I said. I'm seeing someone. I smiled. She looked down at her feet, and I thought she might cry. Who is she? She asked. It's not a woman, I said with a chuckle. She looked shocked. Who are you with then? She asked. With you, Erica, I said, laughing. What did you expect? We were married for so long, and I loved you deeply. It would take time before I could just move on and be with someone else. It would take time to get over you, to find someone new and create memories that could replace the ones we made in our last years. Why would you want to replace them? She asked. It was a good time for you, Erica, but it was hard for me. I loved you more than anything, but I knew you were unfaithful. I knew you betrayed me repeatedly. You knew I was committed to you, but I had to share you. And in those moments, he was more important to you. It wasn't like that, John. Never, she said. You don't see it, do you? There was never anyone else for me. I loved you as much as you loved me. I still do. I only slept with Randy a few times. He's gone, John. There's no reason to bring him up. You're right, I said. But why did you mention it then? I didn't, she said. I just asked if you'd been with someone, and now we're arguing like usual. I wanted to ask you something, and it went off track. Maybe we should change the topic, I suggested. Or maybe we shouldn't talk at all. Let's just appreciate the evening with our family and leave it at that. Maybe I'll see you around. Tonight wasn't so bad. We made it through dinner without a big argument. That's a step in the right direction. She nodded, but her expression showed she didn't agree. Her eyes were tight as she tried not to cry. It's a beautiful night, I said, shifting the conversation. You know what would make it better? She asked quietly. A cold beer, I said. I was thinking we could go back to your place, she said, and be together. I choked and took a deep breath. Erica, neither of the boys would be happy about that, and neither would their grandmother, I said. Why wouldn't I approve? Erica asked. I'd love it. After all, after months of you dating and living here with that grandma blow-up doll, you better be ready for more than a kiss when we leave here. I didn't mean you, I said. You mentioned their grandmother, Erica said sharply. Don't tell me you're thinking of moving in with Darren's mom. Her husband only passed 2 months ago, and you never liked her much. No, I was talking about Grandma, as you called her. When Shelley and I get married, she'll be their grandma too, I said. Shelley and Erica both looked stunned. But Dad, Shelley is barely older than me. She can't be my stepmother. The main reason I introduced you to was because you both needed someone at that point to help ease the pain. It was never supposed to be permanent. Well, you did a great job because I love Shelley. She loves me, and we're committed. We're also going to be parents, so... Sammy, you're going to have a new sibling, and the boys will have a new aunt or uncle. As for you, Erica, I'm not sure what that makes you. Maybe their ex-grandmother or step-grandmother. We'll figure it out as we go. Is this part of your revenge? Erica asked. Is that what this is about? You fought Randy but never retaliated against me. Now, you got this girl pregnant just to hurt me because you wanted me to feel the pain you think I caused you. She sat up in bed. Do you even realize how serious this is? She said, raising her voice. You could be tied to her for the rest of your life, at least until the child grows up. Did you really need your revenge that badly? Erica, stop thinking only of yourself, I said firmly. When I found out about you and Randy, I did beat him up, and that wasn't all. I handled the rest quietly. At the time, I thought I was seeking revenge, but it left me feeling empty. When he died, I wondered if it was because I targeted the wrong person. Randy didn't betray me. You did. Randy didn't promise to be faithful to me. I couldn't hit you or do anything to you, Erica, but I couldn't stay married to someone I didn't trust. Our divorce wasn't an act of revenge. I just couldn't live with that mistrust. It took me a long time to realize that what I was expressing wasn't anger about revenge. It was longing for love, and I found that with Shelley. I'm glad you're doing better, Erica, I said. If this was some kind of scheme to get me to the hospital so we could reconcile, it was pointless. But you're both welcome at the wedding. I left the hospital feeling much better than when I arrived. As the door closed, I heard them arguing over who would pay the hospital bill. It didn't matter, but I knew it wouldn't be me.